Hello and welcome to Politics Today. I'm Farooq Patafi. Today we are going to talk about Afghanistan and the situation in Afghanistan. Of course, Pakistan is committed to an Afghan-led, Afghan-owned peace process. Yesterday there were consultations in Islamabad. Zalmay Khalilzad, the U.S. Special Representative was here. Also Alice Wells was here. So the discussion kept on going. Pakistan has committed to furthering the cause, and America has actually stated that we requested Pakistan to help America and the partners accelerate the process. That is very important. And then, of course, the situation between Afghanistan and Pakistan is well known as well. Today, there was an incursion, attempted incursion from the Afghan side by the terrorists, and 3 of our soldiers were martyred. So today we are going to talk about Afghanistan's solution. One concern is that whenever Pakistan tries to do whatever it can, and then of course one does make statements as well, it somehow adds to the insecurity of the Afghan government. And then you start seeing very suspicious kind of statements that perhaps this should have not been said. But this time, Zalmay Khalilzad praised Prime Minister Pakistan's statements regarding Afghan peace process as well. We are going to discuss this matter and more. In order to help us understand these issues, we are joined by Ambassador retired Aslam Rizvi Saab, a career diplomat and an expert on diplomatic affairs. Thank you very much, sir, for being part of the program. And next to him is Tariq Pirzada Saab, who is a senior analyst, needs no introduction, appears on every channel, international channels. Thank you very much, sir, for being part of the program. My third guest is awaited. The moment he arrives, I'm going to introduce him as well. Aslam Rizvi Saab, I have to start with you. What is the way forward?
You know, ever since the Soviet invasion, and after that, the Afghanistan has been in turmoil.
Yeah.
We forget about the historical part of the British presence there, but for Pakistan particularly, that was a turning point. And until today, we are facing problems in our border with Afghanistan. A country with which we have cultural links, which geographically we are related, and which is of vital importance to us, particularly at this time when there are geopolitical considerations to be taken also in the region.
Sure.
So,
geopolitical or geoeconomic?
Geopolitical and paramountly geoeconomic as well.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now, we have just mentioned that the special envoy had made a mention about Pakistan, praise for its support with the peace process that is taking place, and welcome the Prime Minister's statement. Not only he, but also the Alice Wells, the Assistant Deputy Secretary, had also welcomed that. The problem, unfortunately, in Afghanistan are twofold. One is the interference in the internal affairs of Afghanistan. Pakistan has been accused, but history bears witness. Pakistan is not the only one on this.
It is a royal rumble.
International and regional players have been there. And the second most important issue is the intra-Afghan conflict.
Peace process, right?
Conflict that they are, they have been having from there. So we can see this right now taking place. We are talking about a peace process. As you know, the Americans have laid out a 4-point for which they wanted to discuss. They want to see themselves withdrawn from here with a political settlement so they can go back and say that we have come back in an honorable way. The Taliban are interested that they should give a time frame for withdrawal, which is now being talked about 6 months to 18 months. And of course, the important thing there is the ceasefire and a peace there. And lastly, a national government, as you mentioned, of indigenous Afghan-led and Afghan-owned. So these are the various issues At the
Again, I
moment,
didn't talk about Afghan government. I just said that Pakistan is committed to the idea of
Pakistan.
Afghan-led and Afghan-owned peace process.
Yes, and that's where the whole situation is. And but we see that there are stumbling blocks, and first and foremost, of course, is the unwillingness of the Taliban to talk with the Ghani government, because they consider them to be a puppet and usurper of their rights from there. The of course, the second thing is that the talks that were supposed to have been held in Doha, did not take place because the delegation was too large. You have to then decide who will represent and how will this the cross section of the Afghan be able to discuss with the Taliban to way forward.
Right.
President Ghani, of course, has opted for his way of solving this by holding the Jirga, the Jirga, which, as you know, in the last time it was held, was rejected by the Taliban, and so also this time, and also, of course, because it lacks the proper participation, including Abdullah and Dostam and so on.
Right.
So the situation there is not all that
Hunky-dory.
hunky-dory.
It never has been. And we are going to talk about that, and I'm going to come to you, Tariq Pirzada Sahab, but let me welcome my third guest who has joined now. Hassan Khan Sahab has joined us, Afghan affairs expert, also an expert on war on terror, so many things. Thank you very much, sir, for being part of the program. Tariq Pirzada Sahab, it will be unbecoming of me if I change the question here. So I'm going to ask you, what is the way forward? But I had another, since you are so full of energy, I had another question as well, and that was pretty direct. Every time something happens in Afghanistan, Afghan government or somebody says that there are sanctuaries in Pakistan. Once again, terrorist act took place from Afghan side. Why don't we talk about those sanctuaries there and how it is actually being used against us? Ma'am, Tariq sir.
Yeah. Well, what's the way forward? That's your key question. First of all, I have said it many times and I say it again, that it is so hard to agree with Mr. Trump and his foreign policy on any issue. Rather, it sounds foolish. But if there is one issue on which I do tend to agree with him and his decision to withdraw from Afghanistan, which is a fundamental decision already that has taken place, and the modalities need to be worked out.
Yeah.
What the able ambassador said are the modalities, the peace process, the negotiating table, the proposals, all those things need to be worked out, and this is the way peace process works.
Yeah.
There are hurdles, there is slowdown, blah, blah, blah. So I think the way forward is exactly what is happening in Doha. It can be expedited, things can be said, but there is no other way. Pakistan has made the right decision. Yeah, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Doha and Islamabad.
Doha and Islamabad. What I'm trying to say is Pakistan has made a absolutely fascinating and wise decision by cooperating with the United States, because it is in the basic interest of Pakistan to see that United States leaves Afghanistan without any traces behind.
Okay.
No military presence, and secondly, I need to come back to your the local actors, Mr. Mr. Ghani and the Abdullah. I think their days are numbered.
Okay.
It's very simple. It's not my wish, but their days are numbered, because the negotiating process, whether it is Moscow, whether it is Washington, whether it is Islamabad, they're not even a party. The one time when they appeared in Doha, they were never serious. They took a large contingent of invaders, not negotiators.
Yeah.
So all I'm trying to say is that this is the way forward. And as far as those sanctuaries are concerned, I think in a very mild way, the Foreign Office has issued the statement. I heard that, but it's not enough. The key thing is Pakistan is a major power in the region. We are laying fence over there, building fence over there. And if you have resistance, military resistance or military attack, you know what you do? You do what all reasonable, responsible countries do. Take necessary action.
Hot pursuits.
Go into plausible deniability, mode, and do the job. If you don't, I would keep losing my man.
Yeah. And Pakistani blood is not cheap.
It's
We
not.
have to actually
But it
remind
looks
everybody.
like that it's cheap
Yeah.
because we are not really guarding them.
Absolutely. Hassan Khan Sahab, your take, the way forward, and if you want to actually comment on anything that was said earlier, you can.
No, I think it's for this peace process. This is more essential than any other such thing happens. I think we are not new to this. Is not a new thing happen. Whether terrorists crossing from Pakistan and I think this is the good thing is that Pakistan has largely controlled that phenomena where Afghanistan were accusing Pakistan for having sanctuaries
Is
for
it
Taliban.
because of
But
APAPS? Is
No.
it because of APAPS or because of
no,
the
I think perhaps is no more a functioning. It was, but for the last I think more than a year or two, there is no interaction as far the APAP is concerned. I think this is Pakistan internal policy. One, Pakistan now desire. Previously, it also desired, but it was having its own problem. So now it says that as long as Afghanistan is not peaceful, so its western border, right from both the provinces, Balochistan and Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, etc., which is bordering Afghanistan, I think you can hardly then have a peace there. So Pakistan, in its own interest, now it's working on having a sustainable peace in Afghanistan. And fortunately, the good thing is that for the first time, the world powers, including the US, the Chinese, and the Russians, they are now together. And you might have heard the meeting of the three in Moscow, and then their representative met in Washington, where they agreed on how to go ahead with the withdrawal things. I think that's the crucial thing. Because the Pakistan, Iran, or the regional country definitely would not opt for a withdrawal, which had happened in 1988 when the Soviets were withdrawing. So after that, there was a total chaos, and there was an internal, as we call it, a civil war, and that culminated on the return of Taliban, etc., and then the US things. So Pakistan, Iran, and especially definitely the Chinese and the Russians, they will definitely convince the US that running away is not an option. You have to stay here till the time there is a proper order. One order is here, which is the current order. We may disagree. We may not like this order.
You have named many countries, right?
Yeah.
Here's a problem. All of them, all the partners in the peace process, don't see one vital problem that we have. That is India's proxy wars in Afghanistan. And since Iran doesn't see it, Afghanistan doesn't see it, Americans don't see it, Russians, perhaps Chinese also, that becomes a problem. How do you resolve that problem?
That's a problem for Pakistan, definitely. But Pathapi, look, once there is a peace, once there is a government which is representative, which is representing all the warring parties, etc. So I think then that factor will automatically get diluted. At the moment, the current regime in Afghanistan, it is entirely against Pakistan, especially Dr. Ghani and his
Ghani or NDS?
You can call it
Basically, it is
Ghani because
NDS,
this
right?
is Ghani, which is commanding which is steering on the steering wheel. So it is Ghani, and I think once there is let's say there is a regime where nobody is fighting against the other. So definitely, I think that thing will be addressed. But at the moment, I think what we need to focus on, not to be too much focused on bilateral thing between Pakistan and Afghanistan, because the prime focus is on peace in Afghanistan. And I think definitely such thing will happen. The spoilers will always be there.
How can you talk about Afghanistan without talking to Afghanistan? But
Yeah,
it has to be bilateral as well.
that's a major challenge at the moment. Yes.
Right. I have to come back to you, Ambassador Sahab. You wanted to say something very quickly?
Yeah, very quickly. What Hassan is saying is that, as long as there is no setup conceived for the restoration of peace, till then the foreign forces need to stay there or prolong their stay, or Pakistan maybe should do so. I don't agree with that.
Okay.
Look, the Afghan way of solving their problem, it does involve conflict, does involve internecine feuding, and this cannot be excluded at all, that once the US leaves, that nothing will happen. There will be bloodshed, there will be conflict, but let it be solved by them, and Pakistan should not worry about that. And I need to give you two examples.
Okay.
Saudi Arabia is located right next to Iraq. Yemen is right next to them. War is going on, they're fighting war, but then you just guard your borders and mind your business, keep building your economy. Your life is never going to be problem-free.
Right.
If you're looking for an ideal situation,
But
America is going to stay there forever.
Pirzada Sahab, the two examples you mentioned.
And these are just two, there are dozens.
One clear difference here is that the US is present there. It is part of the wars, and that has to be.
US
kept in
will
mind.
remain present in the Arabian Sea anyway.
Yeah.
They can launch
But you
strikes
said that
anytime.
we have to see the back of entire US representation in Afghanistan, right? You said it earlier that Pakistan's interest is that all Americans should leave. Sir, we are talking about influence with the Taliban, and repeatedly we are asked to actually accelerate the process or lean on them. How influential are we? Can we control timelines? And if we can, what kind of timeline are we looking at?
I think it has been made clear to what extent Pakistan has influence on the Taliban, and they are also conscious of the fact that they should not be seen being persuaded by Pakistan for any concessions and so on. One of the reasons that the Islamabad meeting was called off, informally we are told. Now, I think the very rightly pointed out that we have to look at the picture of the withdrawal of the American forces from here and what will follow after that. If there is a political settlement, there is a well-conceived settlement there will be peace, and it will obviously benefit Pakistan, a bilateral, with energy, trade corridors and this and that. All that will be very helpful. But if they don't, of course, it will make things worse, and not only worse because of the Afghan blame, but the Americans will also be obliged to stay. When they want to pull out, they may want to pull out, and they will start blaming Pakistan that you hadn't done enough. Okay. There comes the influence that you're talking about going from there. So it's a very difficult position. Now, I think the very important thing as far as we are concerned is that while the 4 points includes the acceptance by the Taliban that they will not allow the soil of Afghanistan being used by militants and terrorists outside, and the Americans have mentioned Al-Qaeda by name, and they have also mentioned, of course, the Daesh, the IS. But there's no mention of TTP. Now, the fact remains that, Alice Wells, while here, was talked about the Indian involvement of cross-border terrorism, and she very conveniently said, we have no information or proof of that.
Yeah,
ignoring, if I may.
She actually said, I don't.
Yeah,
and it was the framing of the entire story, the reporter's story,
Yes.
that actually conveyed that she is saying that America doesn't have any proof. She said, I don't have any evidence with me.
Yeah.
So I don't know what exactly she meant.
Yeah, but then I must add, I mean, Jadav is an example from there, and don't forget, Chuck Hagel, when he was at one time in the Congress on there, he has been on record on saying, yes, we are interfering in Balochistan and across from there. And even Manmohan Singh and Sharmul Sheikh had acknowledged, and we had provided them dossiers that was happening. So, I mean, they can't turn a blind eye to say that. And so the kind of incident that took place recently, very rightly said, we must be very firm. We need to have a rapid deployment force.
Sir, with due respect, you have been a career diplomat. Do tell me, why is it that our foreign office has not been able to project and show to the world that how big a challenge TTP has been and how bad it still is? We haven't been able to actually convince many countries. It might be their internal reasons, but we somehow, the message doesn't seems to be taking.
Well, that's a different issues altogether, because that comes into play.
Yeah.
The policies in the region, the Americans wanting to join hands with India against China and so on. Their mantra that Pakistan is doing cross-border terrorism, ignoring the fact that the Home Minister of India himself has said, we will use these terrorists to do things in Pakistan, and they have been doing.
Home Minister and NSA.
And
both.
NSA. And the
Amazing world. I mean, their videos are on YouTube everywhere, and nobody even wants to see them.
There you are.
Nobody's shy.
It's not that they don't know it, but they choose to ignore it. That is the whole point.
The entire world.
well, except for, of course, the European Union, the Chinese.
How is the entire world
the entire
rigged
world.
against
no,
us?
No, no, no. European Union, Chinese, and many countries acknowledge, even Russia acknowledge that as well.
Right.
We all say that if there is democracy or some kind of democracy in a country, we must respect that. Look what's happening in Venezuela. Well, yes, Maduro is a bad guy, and I'm a bad guy, and you are a bad guy, but he's still the elected man. And look what has happened. The United States managed to assemble a alliance of what? 40 countries who recognize them. Then they are sending aid, assistance, openly backing that Juan Guaido, the so-called opposition leader. The United States is talking about, as John Bolton said last night, nothing is off the table. All options are on the table.
Pirzada
So
Sahab,
he was talking about even
Yeah.
the threat of military force.
Yeah.
Now, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, but since we are talking about
No,
Afghanistan,
let me
a
come back
question,
quickly.
just to conclude from what you are saying, is it true that if America sees the problem, the entire world will?
Actually, this is exactly what has happened. Look,
So
what
why can't
happened
we
in
convince
Iraq.
them?
What happened in Iraq? Colin Powell went to the United Nations at the end of the conflict, and he made an admission. He appeared before the American press, made an admission that there was no proof of nuclear labs in Iraq. And then still they went about their business of attacking that country. So basically, it's might is right, and there is no diplomacy left. It's a world of threats and coercion. Look what they're doing in China. Instead of negotiating with them, they are bullying them, sending aircraft carriers, are talking and still raising hell. So it's that kind of world we are living in. This is why I'm saying the next 14 or 16 months of Trump presidency are key to the resolution of the Afghan issue. This is one issue, I agree. Pay attention, allocate as many resources, diplomatic and other resources. Otherwise, the United States will stay there in some form and fashion, and you'll have a drone attack one of these days. You would like.
So Donald Trump actually offers an opportunity. So
He
he's a
does.
good.
I hate to say that.
He's a good guy for us, then, right?
For this issue. For this
why,
issue.
why can't we then sell the problem to him and let him see so that he understands what India is doing? I mean, Afghanistan's soil is being used against us. Is it not true?
Yeah, I think it's still being used as this today's attack, and I think
It was very
even
direct
Afghan,
attack.
even Afghan, the government leadership, a number of times they have hinted such thing that this is just what we call it a response. You are sending terrorists, so definitely we can't send flowers to you, and they have publicly said it that the TTP is being housed there. The other terrorists which are
It
attacking
has been
Pakistan.
publicly stated.
Not send like we are doing it,
Yeah.
but it was hinted that definitely we can't send flowers. This is a number. Even I have heard Mr. Hanif Atma, though he is not in the government, but he said that this. He told one of our friends that this is a wrong policy to use terrorists as a tool against another country. Definitely they were saying that, okay, Pakistan is doing, but Pakistan has suffered a lot due to such policies, and we should not do that. So I think they are doing it, but I think Pakistan's problem was not that we properly not projected, as you put the question to Ambassador, to the world, but the problem was our image. Internally, the image was so much distorted that whenever you went abroad and I went abroad, it was too difficult for us to talk to them. What the hell are we doing for the last, I think, almost a decade? Now I think the things are getting improved. We are putting our own house in order, and we have done it to a larger extent. So now I think it is the turn of the Foreign Office and the other government agencies now to work on it and to look. So far, I think for the last decade or more, narratives were not in Pakistan's favor. Narratives were not in Pakistan's hand, I think.
India
Unfortunately.
somehow is sitting within the system all over the world and blinding it from seeing the problem.
But India was having a bigger
I mean,
advantage.
Donald Trump, he hasn't killed a single man, right? And yet, American media keeps on taking him to task all day long, right? When it comes to Netanyahu, they have most allied, they even criticize him. But when it comes to Modi, somehow the entire American and international media goes silent.
I think, look, you better know, Prathapi, that as per the corporate media is concerned, it's too difficult to go against the interest of corporate sector, especially the current commercial media, whether it is in Pakistan, whether it is in US, or anywhere in the world. So I think India is a much bigger market, much bigger market. Pakistan's entire population multiplied by 4. I
Much
think is
bigger
their,
market than Pakistan, but not China.
I think China is a
Or the
different
Muslim
ballgame. I
world.
think for US, then China has a political and I think strategic things
It's
for.
no, but Chinese market is badly. Indian market is badly broken. Chinese market is in good shape and it is opening
No,
up.
but China is threatening I think their the world economic status also. The
They are
US
not.
But no, they have threatened it all. I think.
It is India's propaganda. India keeps on saying
Look,
this.
if we say, as far India is concerned, I think for Pakistan, it is too difficult to compete with India. International Indian diaspora, I think they're more proactive. You know, when we say that there are billionaires in the world, if there are a dozen billionaires in the world, 3-4 will be Indian. And unfortunately, I think we don't have any. I'm just talking about it.
And magically they have billionaires. One of them, Mukesh Ambani, within 1 year, from $40 billion, his net worth reached $60 billion. It is some magic number.
This is intelligence,
and
I
it
think.
is because he's very close to Modi.
That
You
is
want to add
intelligence.
something?
Oh, of course, I mean, you're right. I mean, I agree. Here is a problem. As far as India is concerned, for the first time, and I'm not a member of PTI, but let me support the government openly, and I always do say things openly when I have to say that. On the issue of Indian intransigence and later on Indian incursion into Pakistan on 26th of February and then our response on the 27th, we were able to blunt Indian propaganda, project our point of view rightly, and we were really appreciated in the world media. I really watch it until late night. I mean, it's until 3 a.m. And so I can safely say that in this issue, we managed to not only respond properly, but project our policy properly.
It was
This is
very good.
exactly what we were talking about earlier, that when he was saying, when Hassan was saying that, it's the image of Pakistan, well, you raise newer issues that help you and suit you so that you can improve your image. But if you don't project your policies just the way you did on 26th after 26th and 27th, regardless of how limited that incident was, but it did become an international issue. The world press came to Pakistan. The Kashmir issue got highlighted. I hope that we can support Kashmir more openly, but that's a different
Yeah,
issue.
I know. That is your opinion and most welcome. But sir, when we talk about bilateral talks between Afghanistan and Pakistan, it somehow seems, because at the start, Ghani Saab also came to Islamabad, all of a sudden he becomes very unpopular. Then he starts getting angry with Pakistan and then he becomes very popular. And it seems that NDS actually is very close to India and it keeps on, managing or framing the problems the way they like. So is it not wise, if you want to talk to Kabul, instead of talking to Kabul, you talk to Delhi?
Well, yes. Before I come to that, let me just quickly say that why the world tends to ignore Modi's, terrorism, acts of terrorism, and his
Christians
savagery.
are being killed in
Yes,
India.
yes.
In Kashmir, children are being blinded.
Yes.
India keeps on exporting terrorists to Pakistan via Afghanistan,
Conversion
elsewhere,
is here.
and one of them is in our hands.
Yes.
And yet
So-
the world doesn't see
Yes.
it.
So the reason is very simple, because America is at war with China, and it is at war, economic war with China, because they are struggling. They know that they are number one right now. Militarily, yes, they are not. They are still number one, but they're also very worried the way China is rapidly modernizing its armed forces. Now, as far as the economic things concerned, the Chinese growth is slowing down, and for a country of that size, a little slowdown means a lot. And the Chinese therefore need to have new trades. They have to have new investment. They have to really open out, and that's where their one road One Belt project, of
Yeah,
which
but,
the flagship
No,
is
I get the
CPEC.
overall picture, at least your
CPEC, yeah.
perspective.
So
but
let
sir,
me-
with due
let-
respect, conscience
let me
cannot
just-
be subjected to realpolitik.
Yeah, because this
People are dying.
Yeah, this is what is happening is because
It's
they are worried,
politics.
and therefore they need to have the support of India and America to try and scuttle this project.
And it doesn't matter if India becomes a bigger Frankenstein than their perceived Frankenstein.
But that's what I'm saying. That's
And
why.
that is quite
that's why
possible.
they are. And it is going out of hand for them, and so that's why the Americans are getting very worried.
Correct.
About what is happening. So this is my take that why this is happening now.
Right.
But you know the
now
the
talking
Chinese are
to-
playing the card very well. Look by going by the last economic forum that took place in China.
So if
And-
the entire world is so rigged, sir, shouldn't we be talking to New Delhi rather than Kabul to resolve? I'm going to come back to you, and he has to actually
okay.
add as well.
But anyway, that's beside. As far as
You are not going to answer that question.
no, as far as Kabul is concerned, you know, we've had ups and downs, and
Mostly downs,
well,
very few
yes.
ups.
But you know, where we are at this moment, since the PTI government has come, they made it very clear they want to see that there is peace and thing. They are suggested that there must be a ceasefire. First of all, agreement on the ceasefire, and secondly, that whatever they decide, it has to be an intra dialogue there. and
intra-Afghanistan
there onwards-
dialogue,
Yeah,
yeah.
and Afghanistan dialogue, and we would stay neutral in that. So, you know,
Absolutely, sir. But when it comes to Kabul, I remember that all the governments, right from Pervez Musharraf's time, I mean, they have been very conciliatory. They have been very kind. Afghanistan used to allege or accuse Pakistan, and we used to actually very politely respond to it. So I don't know why we think that
Because
not you want to add?
Yeah, I think just, Prathapi, I think we are making a very simple reading of a very complex situation with
was about to say.
Afghanistan and Pakistan's relations are concerned for the last.
Let us break down the problem into smaller parts.
I think the problem
Pakistan,
is that it,
Pakistan, hang on. Pakistan-Afghanistan relationship, never good. Always India good in Kabul, always Islamabad
Who is at
bad
fault?
in Kabul, right?
who is at fault?
No.
This was whose fault?
I haven't made the universe, right, sir?
No,
So I can respond to certain
Look,
failures that
until-
I had.
Until and unless
Why can't
you
we
don't
talk to New
surgically,
Delhi?
you don't surgically analyze the issue, just superficially rubbing it under the carpet, I think, that will not solve the issue. The problem is
For 19
you and
years we
me,
have been
you
talking about
and me are witness, and for a number of time we discussed those issues even on this in your program. That look, Pakistan's Afghan policy was missing almost. I think we were talking about what is Pakistan's Afghan policy. This, I think, in your program we talk about what is Afghan policy. Everybody will say, "I'm sorry, I don't know." For the first time, I think.
May I make a very quick interjection here? I don't know about Afghan policy. I think we always had one Afghan policy. My problem is perhaps Pakistan was so busy with Afghanistan that it forgot that it had to have a Pakistan policy. The Pakistan policy
Pakistan
as well.
pol-
And now we are reclaiming that space. Please
But
go
I
ahead.
think that we have lost the space to Indian and to Iranian. Look, there was a time when Pakistan was having almost 5 billion trade, but off and on whims, we just pull down we close the border one fine morning, and the next we open it, then close it, and I think what happened?
Sir, you're
Now
not
today we have hardly $500
Hassan
million.
Saab, Hassan Saab, neither you nor I are thought to be hawks, right? But if you talk to anybody who's actually thought to be the traditional hawk in Pakistan, they will not start from today. They will not even start from 1947, when Iran was the only country, Afghanistan was the only country that was opposing Pakistan's inclusion into UN. They will start with the, the earlier movements.
Look, I think
when
Prathapi, you
Afghanistan
know it
actually
well,
blocked Pakistanis out.
Intelligent nations are the nations who want to progress. They always look into their own interest, not on daily basis, but on a futuristic basis, what Pakistan's interest is, whether Pakistan is interested to keep sticking to the position which we were in 1947, then I think the same would have been done with the Indian also. What was our relation with? We were killing each other. Muslims and the Hindus were killing each other. Look at the Middle East. Middle East is a change. Now the Saudis are talking to the Israelis. Turks have already accepted them. Egyptians have accepted them.
That must be the that
look,
must
so
be the
what-
case.
what I want to say,
But
that-
somebody
what I wa-
yesterday told me that they are the same people when during Khilafat movement Muslim wanted to go and hide in Afghanistan. They actually hardened their border and closed their border. So
So
people
that was
have
done in
long
their own
memory.
national interest. Look, that was done by the Afghan.
So
Let's
why-
say, if I am a
why
Pakistani,
am I supposed
I am
to
a
not act on
Pakistani.
my national
Look, that is the question. If I am a Pakistani, I must look into my own interest, irrespective of what morality says, irrespective of what any other book says. My interest shall be Pakistan's interest. Unfortunately, we Pakistani haven't done that. I think so.
Somebody came with the Machiavelli in the car's
It
trunk.
is the Machiavelli
But
thing.
you wanted to say something, sir. India,
I did. Number one, remember one thing. Not many people like this position that I have taken, that India is an enemy state, remains an enemy state, will remain an enemy state, even if the issue of Kashmir is resolved. So struggle for dominance in the region, struggle for dominance in the Arabian Sea, all these things. Number one. Number two, as far as Indian interest is concerned, the Pakistan's interest is concerned, the center of resolution does not lie in New Delhi. The center of resolution of the issue lies in Washington.
Okay.
I made it very clear why. Because the next 14 months are here. It's a golden opportunity. I think it is for the first time that the government of Pakistan is very articulately following a policy. Those stories that Pakistan didn't know its interest, blah, 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 blah. Well, at that time, they knew their interest. At the time when Musharraf acted, he acted wisely. I support him even today. If you had not supported the United States at that time, and my position remains, the United States would have directly attacked Pakistan.
Yeah.
There is no doubt.
and India would have helped.
Of course, it would have been a golden. But following that, it was a disaster. Musharraf never acted wisely. Well, that's a second story. Now, I can't help on that. So, Afghan policy, as it is being practiced right now, good policy, follow it. India, as far as India is concerned, once you have the resolution of Afghan issue in some form or fashion, of course, we do space for conflict that will ensue. I know that will ensue in Afghanistan.
Right.
Let's not worry about that. I'll be as brutal as he is. Let them solve their internal problem as far as the formation of government is concerned. But let the United States leave with this guarantee that their soil will not be used against the West. And it looks like, from the way I'm reading Washington, they are pretty satisfied on those guarantees.
Right, and we have to be satisfied with the statement that was made by Alice Wells yesterday that America will not support any country using its territory or allowing its territory to be used against another, especially reference. The question was about Afghanistan,
I agree with you.
Afghan soil being used against
She played
Pakistan.
game on that.
I don't know whether she did
I
or
know,
not.
I can say that.
Just to add
I would
one
like
thing,
to say that our media actually played a game.
Just want to, sir, this is not the first time that Afghan peace talk. This is Doha process. We can call it Doha process. Or may Doha Accords
It is
come
a
out.
time. It is a time loop.
Well, look,
I was
previously
7 years old
have
and
to
we were
be-
talking about
What-
Afghanistan
what-
talks.
No, what I'm saying, we have to be careful, and I think we have to be mindful. Look, there were talks in 1988, this we call it Geneva Accord. Geneva Accord happened and it was followed by a civil war. After that, Bonn Accord happened and it was followed by a civil war.
Actually,
Peshawar Accord happened, it
actually
was followed
Geneva
by the...
Accord happened, and then we saw change of government in
Yeah,
Pakistan.
I'm
Remember
not,
that.
I'm not pulling myself into that discussion, but what I say, as a Pakistani, one must be conscious of the events which is going to happen, are going to mold the new situation, especially in Afghanistan. This is after every accord, after every agreement, we call it peace agreement, there was violence in Afghanistan. So when we are reading the talks between Taliban and the US, when we are reading the agreement to be, I think, inked between Afghan and Afghan,
Don't write it
the US,
down then.
I think we have to be very careful.
Cautious.
We'll be very much cautious.
Or the other possibility is never actually write it down.
Yeah,
Because
exactly.
agreements have that kind of impact.
We are at a point in Afghanistan for the first time in 18 years. The Americans and the Taliban are talking. There are the prospects of peace, of cooperation and stability and development taking place if peace comes about. And so it is of very, for Pakistan in particular, it's very, very important. And I think our situation is also now in Afghanistan, when they have had 40 years of war fatigue.
200 years.
Well, I mean,
300
in the
actually.
recent past.
It never ended.
Yes, never ending. So they are also looking for peace, and maybe that scenario doesn't come, that after the Americans pull out. It's going to be a win-win situation for Afghanistan as well as Pakistan. It's, given, like I mentioned earlier, the economic corridors, the energy corridors, the wealth they have, mineral wealth, etc. So it is, as far as Pakistan is concerned, we have to do, and as much as we can, to make sure that we cooperate in all ways possible to help this peace process, and we should not allow this occasion to slip away from our fingers.
Right, sir. Very quickly,
One
sir,
good thing.
then I have to.
If you read U.S. policy very, keenly and with in minute details, even where they have not said something explicitly, they have hinted very clearly. I'm using the word clearly with a hint, and it is very clear that they are least worried at the present time about any ensuing bloodshed in Afghanistan. They want a government in Afghanistan and with some political structure and with some issues of power sharing settled. Beyond that, they are not banking on total peace. They did not do that in Vietnam. They did not do in Iraq. They're not going to do. They didn't do that in Libya. It's not going to happen in Afghanistan, and Afghanistan is known for its history. They have their own way of settling the issue. As much as I hate my statement that Afghanistan should not have should solve its own problems, I don't have any other suggestions to make.
Right, sir. You want to conclude, add to it?
No, I think just this
Very
is
quickly,
this
sir,
this is
yeah.
a very this is an ideal occasion. I think this is the now or never, which I believe the entire international community is on one point agenda. They're working for peace in Afghanistan. So I think for Pakistan, it's better to facilitate a win-win
It is
situation.
facilitating.
A win-win situation, not
I have to-
facilitating.
I have
a
to give
win-win
credit
situation.
to
It is not
Pakistan.
you lose, I win, I lose, you win.
No,
I
but
think
you have to realize Pakistan has been killing itself for 18 years, literally.
Pakistan is a very crucial country as per peace in Afghanistan is concerned.
we
have to
lost
be mindful.
80,000
No, but we are supporting the process.
We lost
I think
80,000
you have to
people.
commend the government for that. Whether even if it was Zardari, I would say they are doing the right thing.
Right. And let us hope this time it is different. You really mean it, right? On that note, Hassan Hanzab, thank you very much for your time. Tariq Pirzada Sahab, thank you very much for your time as well. Ambassador Aslam Rizvi, always great having you in the show. Viewers, you have listened to our participants, our discussion. When you sit in the West or elsewhere in the world, maybe these concerns might not be that much high on your list. But when you sit next to a black hole like India, whose negative energy keeps on crippling the entire region, you have to realize that all these threats, all these concerns are real. And somehow it is fascinating that the West and the world at large doesn't see what India keeps on doing, and it buys India's propaganda from Masood Azhar to God knows whatever else. One has to ask at this time, realpolitik is one thing, but is it not time that we start listening to our conscience as well? This was today's program. Thank you very much for watching us. Take care.